Hey everybody, it's another Cooking with Cory. I got my groovy Boston Fire shirt on. I'm a Rescue Me fan, and also some of my Marines that I used to serve with are members of the Boston Fire Department. So I got my shout out to the Boston. I like Boston anyway. So what I'm going to do today, my groovy new stand says I can move this around even when my hands are dirty, is we're going to make some meatloaf. So I got 2 pounds of meat. I'm using deer, but you don't have to. You can use any kind of burger. Hamburger works fine. I just have a whole freezer full of deer burger, so I'm using deer burger. And I got some vegetables and stuff like that to put in it. I'm going to do a twist on it that some people don't necessarily do, but what I'm going to do is put cabbage inside the meatloaf and roll it up like a meat roll. Now, originally when I did this before the first time, before I started making videos, was I took spinach leaves and I laid spinach leaves out. We'll get to that part. This might be a little bit of a long video, but anyway, meatloaf is pretty simple. But because I didn't prepare anything, it'll be a little bit longer video because you're gonna have to sit there and watch me cut stuff. But anyway, so I need to get a big sharp knife. Alright, so first thing you do, especially if you're using like wild game, is you look for the taint. There could be some taint in that meat. So, what taint is a taint meat. So it could be bone pieces, or it could be some hair or some stuff that slipped in there during processing. So we're first going to squish all this out into our bowl. I defrost it in one bowl, and then I stick it to mix in the other bowl. The reason I do that is because these bags, no matter how sealed they are, they bleed. And if you don't do that, you're going to have blood all over the refrigerator, and it's gross. So anyway, oh man, it still feels a little frozen. But anyway, that's frozen, not a big deal. So I'm going to plop that in there. I'm going to take this little dude here. I know. Rip that open. Oh, I got a watcher on. I nervous Jared. Jared doesn't have a job, so he's probably the one that's watching me now since he's not working. Alright. I'm just rinsing these out because it was trash day today, and I meant to make this yesterday, and I don't want a bunch of stinky meat sitting around in my garbage for a week. So leftover bloody meat packages tend to really smell. So I'm going to rinse that down the drain. And call that good. Yeah, see? That's the little bit of blood that comes out when you defrost it in the refrigerator. When you do regular like store-bought hamburger, you don't have to worry about that necessarily, unless you buy your hamburger in bulk, which some people do. You know, it's all good. All right, but there's still just a little bit of ice in here. Oops. Alright, so put that on the defrost. Grab a cutting board. Alright. Chop up some onions. I like onions in mine. You don't have to put onions in yours. And some people like to saute the vegetables before you put it in the loaf. You don't have to do that, but if you want them to be like, I don't know, a little bit softer, I don't mind the crunch of some vegetables being in there. And this is gonna cook, contrary to the popular belief, meatloaf is not a quick meal. I mean, it's relatively easy to make, but you want to make sure that it's cooked through to at least 160 degrees all the way through the internal temperature. And you're gonna put it in like a loaf pan like this. This is my loaf pan. I get glass, and I like glass when I'm cooking meatloaf because I can see all the crap and the juices. If you buy a hamburger and you buy like that, if you're like me and you're cheap and you buy like the stuff that's like 82% fat or whatever, I don't know, the crazy, like really fatty meat. So your meatloaf, you'll watch it shrink in the pan, and then you'll have this big thing of juice around it. And then what I do is I take some of that juice out and I make gravy out of it, because that's how you make your meatloaf gravy. So anyway, maybe I'll make another video with that sometime. But while we're waiting for the meat to get a little bit more defrosted, because it's only been defrosting for 2 days, maybe my refrigerator might be a little too cold. Or maybe because it's so empty and the only thing that's in there is really deer meat and a couple of onions and eggs is maybe why it froze or stayed frozen. Anyways, I'm dicing these up. You want it relatively small because you're gonna be mixing this into the meatloaf proper. But you know, there's no big deal if you leave some chunks. So I'm saying you don't have to like freaking throw this stuff like in the food processor. Although I do have a food processor, it's right there. I don't use it very much because I cut myself all the time whenever I use it. No matter how hard I try not to, I end up cutting myself on some part of that thing every time I use it. So I only use it like if I'm like making something, like a lot of stuff that needs chopped. See how this is looking. Alright. So I don't see any taint in that meat. It looks pretty good. Gotcha, see, you told me. Anyway, another thing when you use wild game is it's not very fat, because animals, like exercising people, like me, are not fat, because they're out and they're running and frolicking and hopping over stuff and running away from things trying to eat them. So they are fit and muscle, they don't have a lot of fat on them. Now, the cows that just wander around in the field, they're like, you know, the big fat obese freaking Xbox playing kids. So like during the zombie apocalypse, all them fat people are going to get ate first. Us fit people are going to be the ones left alive. But anyway, so what I was getting at with that is usually you want to add a little bit of fat to wild game meat, because fat is usually what also gives meat its flavor. So what I do is I take a little bit of bacon fat, because I have a whole lot of bacon fat, and I scoop that up and I just put it in there and I mix it in with the meat. Just to give it a little bit of extra grease, because when you grease up this pan to put the meat in and all that, it's gonna still cook up and shrink a little bit, but because it's wild game, it's not gonna shrink as much as like some not very lean hamburger. Also, you want eggs, 1 egg per pound of meat that you're using. The reason that you put that in there, and this is a trick with hamburgers too, like if you're going to be cooking hamburgers, especially on the grill, if you're like that dude and like every time you're the freaking clown that drops the hamburgers break in half and fall into little pieces, and like everybody gets like a half a burnt hamburger because you don't know how to grill. If you take some eggs and you blend it down in there in the meat, it helps hold that meat together. We're also going to use breadcrumbs, but you don't use breadcrumbs when you make hamburger, because that's just gross. No, it's not, but you don't have to if you're making hamburgers. So we're gonna have like you only need like a half a cup to a cup. Depends on how runny the meat is. I like garlic, so I'm gonna throw some garlic in there. But what I'm gonna do is, after I mix all this stuff up, I'm gonna get it all nice, get the dry and the wet ingredients all smushed together, get it all worked in there, kneading it kind of like bread. And then when I'm done, I'm gonna lay it out flat, and then I'm gonna rip out the cabbage, because I have a cabbage left over from when I made the borscht the other day. And I'm gonna shell out some leaves and roll it up. It's not a lot. You're not like gonna have a whole butt ton of cabbage. It's not like huge. And the same as if you do it with spinach. You just lay a layer of spinach leaves and then you roll it up. But you'll see how it happens. It's gonna go down here in a minute. All right. All right. This feels done enough. Can't really tell, but it feels like it is. All right. I'm gonna throw a teaspoon of salt in there. What else do we got? What else is good in there? A little bit of parsley. Some basil. Ew, I don't want that in there. There we go, basil. Marjorine's good in there. Got a little bit of marjoram going on. Sage a little strong, don't want the sage. Cayenne pepper, just a touch. Just a little bit of that. Just to make my hands a little bit red when I go mixing this up. It's a little bit of paprika. Not a lot. And it's your meatloaf. Put in what you want. I don't care. I mean, you can put freaking sugar and cinnamon in there if it makes you happy. I don't care. Put in whatever you like. And then a little bit of pepper. All right. Alright, so we're going to take our onions and drop them in there. Like that. I'm not going to worry about cleaning the cutting board off really, because when I go to roll it out, it's just going to get on there anyway. Should have probably took my watch off. So usually when you're kneading stuff like dough, or if you're going to be like get your meat hooks all in there and start grinding up some meat with your hands, you want to take all your jewelry off, because one, if you're like, oh, I've never taken my wedding ring off. Well, yeah, there's all kinds of vile magma behind your fingers there, and it's getting in people's food. So, you know, not telling you what to do, but if you're going to make food for other people, take your crap off. If it's just you eating it, like sometimes when I make some really, like, you're like, really, dude? Hey, if it's just me eating it, you know, who cares if my hands are dirty? I'm eating my own germs. But if you're making food for other people, wash your hands a lot, and also take off your jewelry. And then if you're a hairy dude like me, I don't have hairy hands, but if you're like hairy and your hair gets in people's food, that's gross too. So you should like wear long sleeves and all that crap. That's just a public service announcement from Cooking with Cory G. So it's about a half a cup or a cup of breadcrumbs. You don't have to get freaking carried away with it. It's just to help bind it together to make it that loaf. Where's my grease? Oh yeah. Oh, here we go. So this is my bacon grease hopper. So every time I cook bacon, I just stick it down in here, and I got my bacon grease in there. So we're gonna throw in, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon or two of bacon grease. Tablespoon and a half, I don't know. You don't need a whole lot. And then also what I'm gonna do is, because when you make meatloaf, you want to lube the pan up. So, like anything, if you don't lube it, it's gonna stick. And especially with like wild game, because like I was telling you, it doesn't have that much fat in it. So if it doesn't have that much fat in it, that's what's keeping it from sticking. You wanna put your own fat on there. So like just kind of lube that all up. And let's see, yeah, that's all good. Put that back in the refrigerator. Now, every once in a while, it takes it a while to go rancid, but every once in a while you want to clean out your bacon thing. So if you pop that thing open and it's black on top, because you haven't used it in a while, that's not the bacon crispy stuff. That is bacon mold, and you don't want that. So take it, and if you have one like I have, you can like make a double boiler type of deal. You can set it in a pot of hot water, and that'll get the sides hot. You pull it out with some hot pads. You don't have to melt it all the way back to grease, but at least you stick it in that boiling water, it's gonna melt at least the sides, so you'll have a big old greasy turd you can just blop out and throw in the trash and get rid of it, clean your container, and start over again. All right, I'm gonna put the eggs in. Again, you don't want to get any shells in there. Side for a second. All right, so you just grind it. You can use both hands. I don't see a need to get both of my hands all disgusting with meat, so I'm just gonna grind it all up with this hand. And there's different variations on what people put in it. Some people like to put shredded carrots. You can put little pieces of celery, which I've done before. You can open up a can of tomatoes, like some like stewed tomatoes, and you can put, I'd say, half a can. I wouldn't dump a whole can in unless you're making like a huge, like a 5-pounder. Then you could probably use a whole can, but you can put stewed tomatoes in there. Meatloaf's pretty fun. I mean, you can get away with all kinds of, sex it up a little bit. Put some good things in there, and see how it works out. And if whoever you're cooking it for doesn't like it, well, the hell with them, But anyway. Kind of playing with my meat here. Anyway. I know you can you see that? Because if you didn't see that and you just heard that noise, you might think something else was going on in the kitchen, but I don't know. Yeah, that's not what's going on. We're just squishing the meat down, getting it all nice and mixed in. So what you're feeling for when you're squishing the meat around in your hands, on top of like, you know, looking for fur and other taint pieces that might be in there, you're gonna you're also looking to make sure that it's blended really well. So you're gonna smush all these pieces of oh, see, look at that. Yeah, that's taint. We don't like taint. Let's get rid of that right now. So anyway, you're gonna grind this all up, and you're looking for big pieces. You don't want any big chunks in your meatloaf. So as you knead this, get all the pieces all grinded together, you kind of feeling to see if there's any hunks in there. All right, so we're gonna let this sit for a second because I need to go get the cabbage. But I'll give you guys an eyeball on this. Yeah, that was like a piece of tendon that I threw away. So it's, you know, I don't want to eat that. There's another piece right there. Yeah. All right. So it should look fairly stirred up nice when you get in it. Yeah. Well, I got the handle. I don't have the lighting, so I'm gonna get some little cabinet lights later. I think that'll definitely help the lighting situation. Right. Cabbage. So like, if you were gonna put, say, carrots in there, because some people like carrots and everything, which is, you know, whatever's fine. You either need to cut them very thin, cut them into these little tiny cubes, or you have to saute them first. Which, if you saute carrots in butter and then you eat, I mean, that's a meal. So you can, or not a meal, but that's a side. Like, it's very good. My mom used to make that when I was a kid, so you can do it that way, or you can just cut them really small and stick them in there. Alright, so we're going to take our meatloaf. We've got our surface. Like I said, you don't have to worry about it being, the surface doesn't have to be immaculately, you know, well, clean. Obviously, you don't want dog hair and cat fur and crap on there. But, like, if there's still some pieces of onion and stuff in there, it's a meatloaf. It's going to sit in the oven for 45 minutes to an hour. So, you don't really have to sweat it if it's got some matter on there. A little bit of matter. Yeah, let's squish all that in there. And another reason I like to use glass bowls is you can see through it. So like I knew there wasn't any major clumps of like breadcrumbs or something that I hadn't got to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work this meat a little bit into a flat area. Alright, we're working it. Alright. And then, it doesn't need, it depends on how much stuff you plan on putting in here and how big your pan is that you're cooking in, on how thin you want to get this thing, and how much stuff you're going to put in it. Hey, do you mind? Get back. Get back. I know you're excited. You'll get some later, but you're not getting none of this now. Good boy, you can sit down. Good boy. Alright. Alright. And most of this right now is because I'm anally retentive about how stuff turns out, so I'm like making it nice and square. But like if you or your wife or whatever you're doing making this with, it ain't gotta be pretty. But I like to make it look pretty, even though I'm only cooking this for me, because I know Rachel won't eat it. And the dog doesn't care if it's pretty. Alright, so. Alright. Huh, you don't care if it's pretty, do you? Alright. Alright, so cabbage. Like you can tell, like when I made the borscht, I used a pretty decent amount of cabbage, but I still have a lot of the cabbage head left. So I was contemplating if I was going to make corned beef and cabbage, which I really love, or if I was going to make something else with the cabbage. But I don't know. I'm still going to have a lot of cabbage left after this because you're not going to use this whole head of cabbage. So what I'm going to do, and like I said, when you do it with spinach, spinach leaves roll a little bit easier, and they tell you to like blanch the spinach leaves real quick. You don't have to. Like I said, it's going to sit in the oven for a really long time. All right, so all you're doing is you're making a little happy layer here. We're layering this out. All right, just peel your cabbage leaves. Now, when you start to get down to the thick piece of cabbage leaves, you don't really want that because it's not gonna fold very easy. So you want to get pieces that are, like that. That's too thick. But you don't want to put that in there. All right. And again, it's not perfect science. We're not freaking building rocket ships or anything. Nobody needs to depend on this for their life. So you can see, well, maybe you can't see because I'm crazy with the camera. It's just a layer of cabbage leaves on top of a meat patty, pretty much. That's all that is, just a big giant meat patty. All right, so then, this is the fun part, where sometimes it gets a little tricky. You're gonna roll it up now. All right. You know what? I'm gonna put a little bit more in the center. It's okay. It's all good. All right. So we just get this meat rolling. This is gonna be the inside. So, all right. So we just started rolling it and rolling it. There you go, Noah. There's some nice raw meat for you. Roll it. You're rolling. Hey, trying to escape. Roll it. It's sticking to the board a little bit, which is okay. We don't care. We're gonna roll it a little more. All right. And roll it. Oh man, rolled it right into the coffee pot. That's okay though. All right, and we plop it in the pot in the baking dish. All right. So, pretty much that's it. I'm gonna make it look a little pretty because, like I said, I like to make things look pretty, but and yes, whoever started the Facebook meme, do you still wash dishes by hand? You should wash your dishes by hand. Really? Why are you wasting energy doing it in the dishwasher? It's just freaking lazy. You got your +4 bubble wand right here. You got, it recharges. Bow, right there. You can throw it in. You can wash dishes all day. It's great. And you want to get more advanced dishwashing concepts, you got the +3 mace of cup cleaning, which you can stick in there just about any cup and clean it out. But the only drawback to these utensils in the kitchen is, well, they repel children. So if you try to get your kids, they will not attune to those items, and they won't be able to hold them, or they'll be very non-proficient with them. I had lots of practice because we didn't have a dishwasher. I washed all my dishes by hand when I was a kid. But anyway, so now my hands are clean. So this is what it's going to look like. And if you look at it from the end, you can see the cabbage is rolled up in the middle. And then, like, if you do this with spinach leaves, you'll have a nice spiral in there. It's really neat and it looks good. So I'm going to cook this for about 45 minutes. I'll probably check it at 30 just to see, because it's not as quite as big as I thought. I thought this was 2 pounds of deer burger. It's more like 1.5 pounds maybe. I know just because when I cook with 2 pounds of hamburger, this thing is usually pretty full. A lot of people like to put bacon or ketchup on top of it, which I'm a fan of. I like all barbecue sauce. I got some Sweet Baby Ray's I'm going to sprinkle on here because I like Sweet Baby Ray's. But you don't want to do that initially, because you will burn the snot out of it and it's going to be all black and nasty and people won't like that. Same with the bacon. If you put bacon on top, you don't cook it with the bacon strips on there. About 30 minutes into it, then put the bacon on top and let the bacon sizzle on top of there and then do its thing. It's to me, it's a better way to do it. I mean, you can put it on there and burn the snot out if you want, but that's you, not me. Anyway, so I'm going to put this in the oven and I'm going to bake it. And I appreciate you guys watching my Cooking with Cory. Thanks.